back at it from Watertown in the Civic Arena, a 64-21 decision for St. Thomas More. He's John Sieber. I'm Gary Ellenbolt, and I will admit that even though I called Kara Duffy Caitlin for a good part of the ball game today, and that was pointed out to me by a loyal viewer and an alert viewer, and I really appreciate that because I mean that's not fair to Kara or, for that matter, Caitlin. And I will work on that next time I have a Cavaliers game, and I will do better. But thank you very much. I mean, that interaction, that neighborliness that we have, you know, I really appreciate knowing that I need to get better at what I'm doing. We do have a couple of final scores from the AA and A tournaments. Not necessarily runaways, but I mean, certainly not to this extent. We're 64-21. Sioux Falls O'Gorman defeating Huron, the number one seeded Knights, over the Huron Tigers 76-32. And Sully Butte in the B tournament in Huron, getting the 69-44 win over the Kimball White Lake Wildcats. Sully Butte advances to the second round and still in championship contention. All three top seeds have won their ball games today. And we've got a 4 and 5 matchup coming up. Those are typically a lot of fun, John.
Well, typically with those two squads, the 4 and the 5, you know, generally pretty competitive because both teams, you know, coming into these tournaments like this, that the nerves are out of the way, the first game's out of the way, you know, and now it's on to the next matchup. And for these two squads right here, the Clark-Willow Lake and Webster area, both played just a couple of 3 weeks ago. Wasn't that long at all. And for Clark-Willow Lake, they're led by Mackenzie Huber. Huber, an outstanding post player for Clark-Willow Lake. The Cyclones, head coach there, Mark Prouty. And Huber averaging about 15 points a ball game, 11 rebounds. And Michaela Prouty, there's some backstory to that we'll get into it as we get into the game. Interesting for this Clark-Willow Lake squad with some of the facts and figures, especially Coach Mark Prouty, who's been around for a long time.
He has. This is his first year of the head coaching work at Clark-Willow Lake. There you see some of their information. And you have said, you know, being a relative native of Northeast South Dakota, you've lived there a long time, that this has really been two different teams between the time that Lindsay Vogel wasn't available and the time that she got back and rejoined the team.
Well, for the Webster area Bearcats, that's exactly it. You know, and I've had a chance to watch Clark-Willow Lake a couple of times this season. Clark-Willow Lake, you know, with their starting lineup, they're guard heavy, but that's the inside-outside that Clark-Willow Lake has, with the Huber on the inside, and then you have Prouty and Colden on the outside. It's kind of like St. Thomas More. You really got to pick your poison on what you're trying to limit with that squad. And for the Webster area Bearcats, you know, they got off to a start with this season, lost a couple of games early, and Lindsay Vogel, Haley Rithmiller leads the team in the scoring and rebounding, but Vogel is kind of as Gary likes to say, the straw that stirs the drink for those guys. As Vogel goes, that's how the team goes. And they were having some trouble ball handling issues and stuff, and Vogel was out for the first part of the season with an ACL. And since she's been back, they've only lost one time. That was to Clark-Willow Lake on February 19th. Just kind of settled things down for Coach Jared Vergelt and the Maroon and Gold. And Webster has been playing very, very well coming into this. And as a matter of fact, with that loss to Clark-Willow Lake, they had won, I think, 12 games in a row going into that Clark-Willow Lake game. Solid ball club. And Haley Rithmiller leading the way as just a sophomore, Gary, already 770 points. And if you remember, Rithmiller missed the season last year, her freshman year, missed the season with an ACL.
Okay.
They brought her back in the state tournament last year and got her in at the end of the last game, and she was able to hit a three-pointer in that game.
Now, one of these teams, of course, John, will go into battle against St. Thomas More tomorrow. Who do you think might match up a little better? I mean, as tough as that's going to be for anybody in the state to match up with the Cavaliers, who do you think might have the better, I don't want to say game plan, but might have the personnel that could at least stay in the ballpark?
Matchup-wise, Gary, I think these two squads are very similar. They have some pretty heady point guards. They've got some ability on the inside. I think either one of these would give St. Thomas More a game, but again, it comes down to, are you ready and can you prepare for the man-to-man defense, for the defensive pressure that St. Thomas More brings? That's what takes teams totally out of their comfort zone.
And it's not just a matter of stopping one player with pressure. You've got 3 or 4 or sometimes all 5 that you have to deal with. So some people hot dogging it here in Watertown at the state tournament. Clark-Willow Lake and Webster coming up. One of the things I remember so well from the Webster squads last year, and I understand they don't do this year, there was a group of senior boys who led the student section in God Bless America. At the end of the third quarter of every game, we were privileged enough to put that in the air, and we got a ton of response from doing so. And it's a neat moment to share with the state and over in Spearfish.
Webster area and Clark-Willow Lake coming up on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. There, I think I finally fixed that.
Okay.
I am now a fix-it person.
I was wondering why it sounded like you were coming from the moon.
Yeah, just all of a sudden keep falling right down there. I have it fixed now.
Couple of games going on tonight. The last game of the 4-game session will be Elk Point Jefferson in action against Red Cloud, and a team that had to have an upset win by Clark-Willow Lake over Sioux Valley to get the second seed. That's Mount Vernon Plankinton. They'll take on Del Rapids a little bit later. The Warriors coming in for the first time in state in several years. They had an unbeaten record coming into the championship game in 2009. Christian Janice and Pine Ridge had just an incredible game. Dusty LeBeau had a great game plan, and they were able to get the decision over the Del Rapids Warriors here at the state tournament, the A tournament in Watertown a few years ago. So it will be MVP, as they like to call themselves, the Titans in action against the Del Rapids Warriors tonight, then the Elk Point Jefferson Huskies taking on the Crusaders of Red Cloud just a little bit later on too.
Lots and lots of basketball over the next 3 days here in Watertown, and then we get the pleasure of hitting the road to Rapid City for even more basketball.
And that is going to be just an incredible boys tournament.
I'm sure we'll see quite a few of the same fans out there, as several of these schools, their boys teams made it to the State A.
Indeed they did. And we will take a final break. Get yourself ready to go. Clark-Willow Lake channeling the Boston Celtics in their new road uniforms. The Webster Bearcats will hit the floor pretty soon. Our final break before game time coming up right now on member-supported South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Statewide broadcast of this South Dakota High School Sports Championship is underwritten by the thousands of members of the Friends of South Dakota Public Broadcasting, by Mid-Continent Communications, and by Dakota Bank.
Back at it we go. The state girls basketball tournament in Watertown, South Dakota. You see the costumed cheering section from Webster area. They like to wear a lot of costumes, and they had some fascinating ones last year. You might remember the young man in the maid outfit. Have a picture of him pouring his orange juice.
Didn't you get a picture of him? Yes.
Oh yeah, I've got it somewhere. I think if I dig around on Facebook long enough.
That was a Facebook picture, if I remember right. With
my goodness.
Waiting on you. That was quite the experience. That was a fun time out at Spearfish with that state tournament last year.
That's right. We're having fun here after game one, the first game of the day, going the way of St. Thomas More, the number 1 seed with just 1 loss, and not to a South Dakota school, getting the better of Cheyenne-Eagle Butte. That was 64-21. St. Thomas More will play the winner of this game, and that will be either Clark-Willow Lake or Webster area. The Cyclones have made some noise in state tournaments over the years. Webster has as well, and neither team from too terribly far from here, so we should have a pretty nice crowd on again as we get into the game across from us, the Webster section, making a very nice trip, very well attended, and that's the case as well around us for the Clark-Willow Lake squad. Let us go to the second starting lineup for the second game. of the state Class A girls basketball tournament. And we'll go down to our public address
Good
announcer
afternoon.
right now.
The South Dakota High School Activity Association, along with its corporate partners, Sanford Health, First Premier Bank Card, Farmers Union Insurance Agency, Billion Automotive, and the South Dakota Army National Guard welcome you to this second game of the opening session of the State Girls High School Basketball Tournament. Our second game is between the Clark-Willow Lake Cyclones and the Webster area Bearcats. This tournament is being conducted under the guidance and regulations of the South Dakota High School Activity Association for the enjoyment and benefit of high school students. Good sportsmanship is essential for the success of these programs. We hope you enjoy the games and support your athletes in a positive and sportsmanlike manner. And now let's meet the cheerleaders, the players, coaches, and officials for today's ball game. First, the cheerleaders for Clark-Willow Lake. Hannah Grunwald, Lauren Feldland, Catherine Paulson, Cheyenne Springer, Emily Binger, and Audrey Hansen. The cheer coach is Bobby Euchre. And now let's meet the players for the visitors on the scoreboard, the Clark-Willow Lake Cyclones. Alyssa Evenson, Abby Bratland, Sydney Felland, Reagan Flory, Reagan Burke, McKenna Burke, Janae Colden, Kelly Wicks, Jennifer Tonak, and Brooke Bruns. Now the players for the Webster area Bearcats. Olivia Bresky, Mariah Valesky, Morgan Hansen, Molly Roush, Devin Spindler, Faith Shoemaker, Lindsay Schoenbach, and Shauna Hansen. And now let's meet the starters for today's ball game. At one guard, a 5'4" eighth grader for the Cyclones, Taylor Hartley. For the Bearcats, a guard at 5'8", she's a senior, Lindsay Vogel. Forward for the Cyclones, a junior at 6'1", Angela Young. And a guard for the Bearcats, 5'8" and a senior, Whitney Keller. For the Cyclones, a guard, the senior, she's 5'8", number 5, Candace Colden. And for the Bearcats, a sophomore, the guard at 5'5", number 32, Mackenzie Valesky. A guard, a senior at 5'8" for the Cyclones, number 14, Michaela Prouty. And for the Bearcats, a forward, a sophomore at 5'10", number 34, Haley Rithmiller. And for Clark-Willow Lake, a center, a senior at 6'1", number 32, Mackenzie Huber. And the senior forward at 5'9" for the Bearcats, Number 44, Joby McCrary. Clark-Willow Late's assistant are Joel Huber and Taylor Weisler. The head coach of Clark-Willow Lake, Mark Prouty. And for the Webster area Bobcats, the assistant coaches are Bill Sawinski and Samantha Sensky. The head coach of the Bearcats, Jared Vergelt. And our officials, the referee is Gene Hansen, Terry Jostrom, and Scott Mack.
Of the Rolling Stones. And Start Me Up. Second game of the day coming up at the State A tournament. And stepping in to call the action, the man whose favorite Marks brother is Carl. Here's John Sieber.
Thank you, sir. Young will be tipping it up against Rith Miller. Young, an excellent volleyball player. Got some pretty good hops. The Bearcats get the tip. McCreary on the drive, can't hit it. And a reach-in foul right away. That's going to be on Rith Miller.
That was a really good example of the defense with Rith Miller on one side and Vogel on the other. I mean, they had the player trapped along the baseline, but just the reach and the foul. And Rith Miller is foul number 1 of the game, 8 seconds into it.
Well, and Rith Miller has had a penchant this season for getting in foul trouble for this Webster Bearcat squad. Open up in that zone, they'll go outside, 3 on the way is good by Colden. Colden averaging about 5 points a ball game.
Colden stretching it out to the far side, had the three-pointer, put all her muscle into it and got it.
And there's Keller. Keller's kind of quiet. She doesn't score a whole lot of points, but got a good look at 3 from there and put it in. And Clark-Willow Lake breaking the press easily as they get it in the hands of Prouty. She'll kind of run things at the team. Leads the team in assists. Michaela Prouty averaging about 12 points a contest. Swinging near side, that's Hartley with it, the 8th grader, number 3. And now Prouty will drive, kick back in the corner. Colden 3, spins out, no. Rebound Prouty, fouled on the putback, and that'll be a foul on McQuarrie.
You really see the intensity in the fire from Michaela Prouty as she was fouled on the shot. Didn't bother her that the shot didn't go in, just clapped her hands and said, all right, let's get 2.
Second team foul. Michaela Prouty at the line.
3-3 your score as you watch game number 2 from the 2015 State A Girls Basketball Tournament. Free throw good by Prouty, steps to the line where she's averaging about 70% from the free throw line. And as we said, leads the team in assists. She's averaging about 6 assists a ball game to go along with those 12 points and 6 rebounds. Prouty, second one spins up and in, good.
And there was a lot of distraction attempting going on by the Webster student section. Michaela Prouty shaking it off perfectly.
Valesky inside has her shot blocked by Huber. Last time these two squads met, it was a 16-point win for Clark-Willow Lake. And Gary, talking with the Webster coaches, they felt it wasn't their best performance of the season.
They had said so, and 16% from the field was their total for the game against the Cyclones.
And there's Vogel making her presence felt. Vogel down the lane, fouled by Prouty. Vogel signed to play basketball at Dakota State next season. Coming back from that ACL, and you talk to Coach Jared Vergelt and you talk to Bill Sawinski, the assistant coach, and they'll tell you they were just shocked that she was able to come back not only that quickly, Gary, but to be able to play at the level she's playing at.
And she has had an incredible year. She has. Vogel at the stripe for a couple.
And with an injury like that, I think the biggest thing in coming back is getting the trust built up that you can trust that knee, and that's where a lot of players kind of struggle at.
Yeah, because if you're playing and thinking about your knee at the same time, you can't focus on both of those.
And Vogel, an excellent ball handler. She'll kind of run things at the point for Webster. Cats jumping out, 1-2-2 full court press here, trying to take some time out. There's Prouty, Valesky on the reach in. Young will hang around and get the pass work in the corner, shot good.
And what a shot from Taylor Hartley. She comes up right side, bounced it around a couple of times, but no thought at all, just put it up.
Hartley's going to be fouled, or Hartley will foul Rith Miller on the way to the basket. Rith Miller will She has a knack for taking the rebound or getting the ball in the backcourt and just driving right to the basket. It seems like nobody knows she's coming, and all of a sudden she's right there with a layup.
John, you've seen both of these teams a few times this year. Does the pace of the game surprise you?
No. Both teams, they will play fast. I don't know. It might serve Clark-Willow Lake better to play a little faster. That's going to be the foul or out of bounds. I think it's out of bounds. I think Clark-Willow Lake touched the ball while standing out of bounds. I think that was on Prouty. Cyclones on the defense, working into Keller. Rithmiller posting, gets it, spins, left hand hook, good.
Boy, nothing to it. That was a borderline Kareem Abdul-Jabbar sky hook.
That's a move I've watched Webster 4 or 5 times this season. That's a move I haven't seen Rithmiller make before.
Saving it for state, maybe?
And now Clark-Willow Lake nearly turns it over on the near side. Cyclones manage to keep it together. And Prouty will drive, jump it, a little jump pass to Huber. Nice move by Huber, quick feet in the lane. Couldn't hit the shot. Mackenzie Huber.
And Huber, one of the guns, of course, very good inside shooter, about 70% from the field for the year. Sometimes they just don't fall, and that was one of those cases.
Now Valesky has it on the far side, give it over to Rithmiller. She'll pull up, left-hand shot, good.
That time with the left hand as she turned around. And I don't know, is she naturally left-handed? Okay. I am too young.
I didn't know, I didn't want to say anything. Here's a steal. Valesky takes it away. Rithmiller leading the pack. Rithmiller goes up, shot blocked. Out of bounds by Young.
And that was about the only way that shot was going to be stopped. She went after the basketball with no foul called, but got part of the body, and that explains the foul call.
Back with more basketball from Watertown right after this on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. Well, 9-7, Bearcats with the lead. They'll have the basketball baseline after the steal by Rithmiller and the block shot by Young. Keller to bring it in, looks for Vogel behind the screen. Vogel steps out. There's Hartley right in her face, forcing her to go a little wider than she wanted to. Vogel wants to drive. She does. Left hand blocked by Huber. There's Mackenzie Huber holding her ground and just waiting for Vogel to come to her. Baseline drive shot, no good. By a new player just checked in, that's Janae Colden.
And she had an opening on the baseline, moved left to right, just couldn't get the shot to fall, maybe a little bit under the rim as she put it up.
Janae, the other 8th grader that sees quite a bit of playing time for this Clark-Willow Lake squad. There's a steal by the Cyclones. Keller goes after it and tries to knock it out of Prouty's hands, can't get it. Hartley back to Prouty. Bearcats in that zone. Going inside to Young, taken away by Rithmiller. Wow. Haley Rithmiller, you can see, Gary, she's much more comfortable with her left hand, and that's going to be a charging foul called on Haley Rithmiller.
Rithmiller showed absolutely no slowdown as she was headed toward the driveway, and she went in, wanted to go coast to coast on the steal and then the shot, but just wouldn't drop for her.
Averaging 20 points, 10 boards a game for this Webster squad. And now sitting on the bench for the rest of the quarter with those 2 personal fouls. I know the coaches have worked with her and talked to her about crossing over to the right hand on that drive. Prouty did a super job of knowing right where she was going. That's good scouting by Coach Prouty and that Cyclone squad. They knew right where she was going to, and Michaela was waiting on her. Here's Colden, 3, no. Rebound Young. Young to Michaela Prouty, 16-footer, bottom.
Boy, nothing to it. She set it up, wanted the good shot, waited for it, and just as calmly as you please, not afraid to fire it up, bring it down. We are tied at 9. Great first quarter, John.
Well, unlike our first game, when we had more turnovers than points in the first half, St. Thomas More, that's going to be a travel. No, a push. Clark-Willow Lake fans not liking the call, but that's the reason the extra step was in there by Vogel. There was a push first.
And most of the fans in the Cyclone student section were doing the rap sign for a turnover, and just wasn't to be. And their expressions changed in a hurry.
Great atmosphere here in Watertown. Of course, both these schools less than 50 miles from Watertown. So obviously a great fan turnout and following for both of the schools. Vogel, open three. That one rims off. And the rebound to Valesky. 5-5 Valesky, and then can't get it. And now McCreary was almost over the back. Vogel will reach in and commit her her first foul.
And that was really a gutsy play by Valesky. As she was going up for the basketball, she was getting a pretty good banging around down there in the low block. She shook that off, put the shot up, just not able to fall.
Huber will leave. Huber with her first foul. Mackenzie Huber, she'll take a seat, and back in will come Colden. So we have Candace and Janae on the floor at the same time right now. That's Candace number 3, Janae number 33, or Candace number 5, excuse me. Number 3 is Hartley. Hartley tries to do a nice little circle move to get out of trouble, and now nearly a steal. It is stolen, but that's going to be an over and backward carry. It's going to be a carry on the Clark-Willow Lake.
Okay.
Either or, I think it would have been Webster basketball.
Yeah, I knew it had to be one of two. That was a beautiful job of the steal, too, as they caught the Cyclone player, maybe not focusing quite as hard as should have been focused, and Webster put up a good move.
Valesky will step in. That's a crossover. Inside McQuarrie. Joey McQuarrie spins, can't hit it, goes up. She's fouled. And this one I think is going to be going on Janae Colden.
And just took a swat right across the back with both hands as she was going up for the shot. That will give her a couple of free throw shots on the foul on the push. Both teams have committed 4 team fouls here. We're at 2:10 in the first quarter, and we're tied up. Not anymore.
Joby hitting about 40% from the free throw line, knocks in the first one. It comes into the game averaging about 7 points a ball game. One of those players, Gary, that the coaches love. She doesn't, you know what you're going to get from Joby McQuarrie every game. And she just seems to have a knack for being in the right place at the right time to get the big rebound, to get the big defensive stop. You're just very alert that way. Quick three out of the corner is going to be no good by Hartley. Back comes Roush, Molly Roush, who checked in when Haley Rithmiller picked up her second personal. Drives baseline, puts up the shot, nope. And Webster will fall back on defense. Hartley all the way in, takes the contact from McCreary, good no call. Huber there to scoop it up, can't hit it.
And Huber's had a couple of tough spots down in possession. She's been wide open for a shot she can normally make really well, but a couple of times they have just not dropped for her. 10-9, Webster area, minute 31 in the first. SDPB TV reported the state high school gymnastics competition a few weeks ago in Watertown. You can tune in to watch highlights from the championships Saturday at 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain. The South Dakota High School Gymnastics Championships on SDPB television. Wonderfully electric atmosphere for basketball, especially when two close teams bring most of their respective towns and get locked up in a Pier Sixer like this one. Right now, 10-9, minute 31 to go.
Well, Webster hadn't been to the state tournament since 1981 until last year when they took 7th place out in Spearfish. Right back here for the second year in a row for head coach Jared Vergeltz and the Bearcats. Vogel in the corner. Out top to the other Valesky. Mariah and McKenzie both in the ball game. And now a steal as they try to go on the baseline too. I think they were trying to work it down there at the baseline to Roush. Back comes Clark-Willow Lake. 3 is up. 3 is no good for the Cyclones. Reagan Flory is in the ball game. 5'6" junior missed that three-pointer. And now Vogel to Keller on the far side. Keller hit a 3 from there earlier. Vogel will drive. Vogel will go up the left hand. Vogel will have it swatted by Huber. Ball rolls in the corner, and there's that. We talked about her. There's Joby McQuarrie, that player. Seems to be in the right place, right time. Doesn't look very clean, but the Bearcats have the basketball, and Whitney Keller knocks down the 3.
Keller finding some room on the high right. looked at who was around her, which would be nobody, and put up that shot from 21 feet away, and Webster opening things up just a bit late in the first.
That had disaster written all over it. I don't think any player for Webster had a clean grip on the basketball at all in that possession. And somehow Keller comes out with the best of the both worlds there. And there's McCreary again. I told you, she just has a knack to be in the right place, right time. Here's Valesky. She'll try a three. That's good as the first quarter comes to a close. Webster on an 8-0 run to close the quarter. They're up 16-9 at the girls' State A in Watertown. You're watching South Dakota Public Broadcasting. Back after this.
We are having at the second period as Webster has the lead against Clark-Willow Lake. 16-9 is our score after one period. And back into the contest, Haley Rithmiller for the Bearcats with a couple of fouls, John.
Well, that 8-0 run to close out the quarter by Webster has got them powered out to this lead. And more importantly, Gary, it came with leading scorer Haley Rithmiller sitting on the bench in foul trouble. Clark-Willow Lake trying to stem the tide. Here's Huber up top to Prouty. Prouty slides far side, tries a wraparound pass inside to Young, and there's Valesky diving after the basketball to come up with a steal. That's Mariah. McKenzie will get the start. Mariah coming off the bench. And now it's Mariah that's on the floor. McKenzie that's taking a seat. Mariah's making the most of it. There's McCreary, the presence of Mackenzie Huber on the inside.
And, you know, when you're down low, all you have to do is get that offensive player in the low block to think for just a couple of seconds. Okay, where is she? And it's so easy to travel or do something with the basketball, or worse, at least for my money, although you're coughing up the ball with any of those, do the 3-second violation.
Huber with 3 blocks already. They'll swing it. Nice ball rotation that time, and Colden will drain her second 3.
Candace Colden setting up, left side, put it up with no one around her, and perfect.
Spacing bad there for the Bearcats, and Hartley will go in and lay it in.
No doubt in the 8th grader's mind what she was going to do. She came up with the steal. Nice job on the steal. And there's another one.
Again, a deflected pass. Goes right to Huber, and Huber's pass into the front court. Trying to get, I think Huber wanted one of her teammates to run a little faster. McKenzie threw it to a spot. There's going to be a foul. This might be on Young.
I think it was as she got on the shoulders of the shooter and looked like pulled her back on this horse collar style there for a minute.
It is on Young. She will pick up the foul.
And at the free throw line is Clark-Willow Lake.
Roush will step to the free throw line for Webster.
Molly Roush, yes, at the line, hits the first.
Roush, a 5'7" sophomore, averaging about 3 points a ball game, shooting 57% from the free throw line. 15 foul on Clark-Willow Lake, 4 on Webster area. Well, that 16-9 lead is gone. Clark-Willow Lake scored the last 5, ending the Webster 8-0 run. Prouty swinging inside Huber. Great position by Huber. She'll power it up, and a foul on McQuarrie. That's going to be 2 on McQuarrie. And right now, Gary, Coach Prouty has it set up for his team to go inside to Mackenzie Huber, because you've got both players on the bottom of that zone for Webster area, Rithmiller and McQuarrie, with 2 fouls each.
And that is going to be a big tale teller here, especially the rest of the first half. 6 minutes 13 to go in the second, but really Huber's having her way inside. And really, you take a look, she's had her way at both ends of the court.
Misses the free throw. Rithmiller with the rebound all the way back, and she's being attacked. And all the way down court, Rithmiller was just being harassed by 3 Cyclone players. She got a step ahead of them and took off for the basket, and somebody came running in from behind to push her. Was that's going to be on Prouty. That'll be her second.
All right. So 3 players in this game with 2 fouls.
And Prouty on the steal. They threw it right to her. Prouty steps around Rithmiller. Can't hit it. Rithmiller with the rebound. Rithmiller is going to be fouled by Young.
Wow, and I thought maybe Rithmiller was going to pick that up because she was really laying the elbows to people. And trying to protect the basketball. Didn't make contact, but really aggressive down there with the ball when she had the rebound.
That'll be the 7th team foul on Clark-Willow Lake. We're all even at 16. Webster with an 8-0 run to close out the first quarter. Went up 14-9 or 16-9 at the end of the quarter. Have yet to score this quarter. Prouty coming across, scored Hartley. Her three, that's off. And Vogel will box out and just let it go out of bounds. I think Coach Vergelt wants to take another timeout here. He wants to talk about what's going on with his squad. And right now, Gary, I don't know, there's no way to give an advantage to either team. Both are playing very well.
Absolutely. And the things that got them to the state tournament are the things that are working here for them today. Great effort by Rethmiller. Vogel, Valensky hit a big three. And this is probably, short of a state final, one of the most intense games I have ever seen. You can feel it all the way up here from where we are. You can just feel that both teams are into this. You can tell both sections are into this, both the hometown and the partisan sections. Student sections are always into games like this, but it has just been a great thing to be part of, and we're not even at halftime.
Well, Webster shooting 38% from the field. Clark-Willow Lake shooting 33%. 6 points for Keller. The leading scorer for Webster. Rithmiller leading in a score on the season for the Bearcats. Been settled with foul trouble, missed the majority of that first quarter. She's back in there. Lindsay Vogel. As I don't think Vogel's scored yet. She has two.
All right.
2 points, and the Vogel has been very good outside shooter for the Bearcats. Rithmiller nearly traveled in the backcourt, almost double dribble, breaking the pressure. Rithmiller pulls up before she reaches Huber. Huber still gets a piece of that shot.
Mackenzie Huber is just putting up some incredible numbers, not only in the blocks, but drawing the fouls down low. Some good shooting as well.
Huber with 5 rebounds on the game. Inside, Huber with the rebound will lay it in. And I'm sure if you ask Colin, she's going to tell you that was a pass all the way. Huber tracked it. Very nice job of tracking the shot. When it came up short, Huber was in the right place, able to pluck it out of there and lay it right back in. Here's Vogel. That's a travel. Yep. Mackenzie Huber did not move. Vogel ran into her and trying to step around her. And now we'll get Rithmiller out of the ballgame. In will come sophomore Schoenbeck for the Webster area Bearcats. Lindsay Schoenbeck, 5'9" sophomore in the game.
Vogel didn't have a lot of chance as she was driving there inside. First of all, you had Huber, which is tough enough, but 3 other Cyclones are waiting for her.
And now a foul is going to be called on Keller, reaching around, fouling Prouty on the reach-in.
Whitney Keller with her first foul, 6th team foul on the Bearcats.
And that will be our cue to step aside. Gary, get a drink of water, catch your breath, folks. It's a good one as Clark-Willow Lake leads Webster 18-16 of the girls' State A on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Back in Watertown at the Civic Arena, SDPB is online 24/7 on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and more. Follow us and get engaging articles, inside information, behind-the-scenes photos, and fun facts. I like saying fun facts. Go to sdpb.org, click on Engage to find links to our social media pages.
Well, after the timeouts, give both teams a chance to settle down here. Line up something new. Come right back. Colden will drop it in. A 3, and now Clark-Willow Lake has gone from trailing by 5 to leading by 5.
Colden saw the opening there from the high right, put it up from 21, and there's the trade-off, kind of, because Vogel hit 2.
Big for Lindsay Vogel. That's her 4th point, just her 2nd basket on the afternoon. And this Webster squad goes kind of how Lindsay Vogel goes. Inside Young, pass deflected, stolen out of there by Joby McCreary. Vogel, step around the screen, hit the 14-footer.
And again, Vogel just able to slip away from the Clark-Willow Lake defense. And it seems like they're not as willing to go inside with the ball now, with Huber showing her prowess today.
Here's Huber inside, takes the contact, and now a foul on Young. Is that 3 on Young already here in the first half? It is. Angela Young will pick up her 3rd.
Yeah, Prouty has 2.
Prouty with 2, Young with 3.
Gaggle with 2 for Webster area.
Rithmiller and McCreary both with 2 fouls.
Joby McCreary is the line for the Bearcats. She'll shoot a bonus.
Free throw by McCreary is good.
And we're tied up once again.
Second free throw, good. Well, for Webster area, they're not shooting 60% like they did the last time these two teams met. They're shooting 46% from the field. Clark-Willow Lake shooting 38%. Clark-Willow Lake 3 of 8 on threes. Webster area 3 of 5. And rebound-wise, 15 for Webster and 10 for Clark-Willow Lake here to this point of the game. 1 point Webster area lead. The winner of this one gets the task of trying to stop St. Thomas More tomorrow night in the semifinals. And there's Colden again, Candace Colden.
Colden seems to have a particular spot on the floor. It's maybe a foot behind the three-point circle, which in high school for both men, or boys and girls, is 19 feet 9. But she's stopped from a spot about a foot behind, launches, and often hits.
And again, they try to go inside, and again, a turnover. Colden now, Gary, 3 of 5 on threes, and there's a blocked pass by Lindsay Vogel. Clark-Willow Lake going right into a pretty good sized student section for Webster area. Every little thing is being critiqued by quite a few students.
A lot of second and third and fourth guessers, really on both sides of the floor, too.
Several opinions down there, yes, being shared every time Clark-Willow Lake gets close to them. Here's Hartley looking over the defense. Trying to pass inside. They go in to Colden. Misses the shot. Got her own rebound back. That one is good. Wow. Janae Colden at 5'8", inside battling Rithmiller. Well, you've got Rithmiller in there in foul trouble. She's not going to go after it too aggressively. And now we get a foul first or a travel. It's going to be a travel.
All right. And fans wanted the foul to be called at the traveled over here.
Spacing that time very bad for Webster area. As Vogel was driving across the lane, Rithmiller stepped in there and stepped right on her way and actually forced the travel. Now Schoenbeck's going to be called for the foul.
Foul whistle on Lindsay Schoenbeck. That's her first.
First foul on Schoenbeck, 7th on the Webster area as a team. Free throw good by Colden.
Some very impressive individual performances on this Cyclone squad today, John.
Well, for Clark-Willow Lake, when you look at it, when you look down their roster, you know, they're a very young squad.
Right.
I'm not sure if a lot of people gave them enough credit on how good they were going to be all year. You know, when you look at this, maybe next year you were talking about Clark-Willow Lake, maybe the year after with all this youth on the team. Cyclone said, you know what, let's do it this year.
And everybody in Region 2 was saying it was Sioux Valley's year. Clark-Willow Lake had other ideas, and there's Huber with another rebound.
That 3 in and out for Valesky, quickly down court. Layup, Colden, nobody was back for Webster area.
And the Cyclones starting to open things up just a little bit. A great game, but Clark-Willow Lake getting some good shots and hitting them.
Rithmiller with the miss, the rebound to Schoenbeck. Rithmiller back in the lane, off the glass, good. And Webster area is going to be looking for, they have their post players in foul difficulty. Nobody's really going to go after it, be too aggressive on defense. You got to kind of tone it back a little bit. And Clark, I think Gary's done an excellent job of exploiting that. Clark-Willow Lake has.
Taking advantage of that, especially with the taller players going against Huber. I mean, Huber can pretty much name her ticket right now.
Mackenzie Huber. Colden with another shot. And now a steal by Hartley on the inbound. To Prouty, 3, no good. Rithmiller with the rebound. Defense forces her wide. She comes to Vogel, three-pointer Vogel, bottom.
Maybe that's the spark that Webster area needs. As Vogel found some room at the top of the circle. The future Dakota State Lady T coming up with the 21-footer. Good for 3.
I was laughing last time down. Janae Colden kind of ran over to Mackenzie Huber's side. Huber just pushed her in the back, said go to the free throw line. Pushed her up to the free throw line very forcefully. Colden got the pass from Prouty, turned and hit the jump shot. So you have to give half the assist to Huber, don't you?
No,
Huber.
I would think so.
Back up and in.
That basket. On the putback, Huber right where she needed to be. She had some struggles shooting.
Vogel at the buzzer. Nope. And there's your first half. 34-27. Willow Lake coming from 5 down at the end of the quarter to lead by 7 at halftime. It's the Class A Girls State Basketball Tournament from Watertown on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Dakota Public Broadcasting, by Farmers Union Insurance, by SDN Communications, and by the Independent Insurance Agents of South Dakota.
We welcome you back to the Civic Arena in Watertown. Great crowd on hand for a couple of schools fairly close to Watertown who are giving you a game as advertised. Clark-Willow Lake able to ride Mackenzie Huber down to a 34-27 lead after one half of play. Here's the tail of the tape from Watertown. Winner here to take on St. Thomas More tomorrow. Tomorrow night in the semifinals. St. Thomas More 64-21 decision over Cheyenne-Eagle Butte. Let's look first of all for the shooting percentages, and we will go at first to the leaders on the scoreboard, Clark-Willow Lake. As far as the individual scoring goes, they have nobody in double figures. Candace Colden with 9 points, 3 of 6 from three-point range. The leader is Janae Colden. She is 4 out of 6 shooting, 2 of 2 at the line, 1 three-pointer for 11 points. Then you go down to 6 for Mackenzie Huber. Mackenzie Huber's had a very good game on both sides of the court, offensively and defensively, and has really made the Cyclone or the Bearcat players think about things fairly often when they had the ball, even when they didn't. Taylor Hartley with 4 points, 4 points from Michaela Prouty, and that has been the scoring for Clark-Willow Lake. The Cyclones 13 of 29 from the field at 44.8%. That's just bubbling under the Webster numbers right now. Three-pointers, 4 of 11 for the Cyclones, 4 of 7 for Webster area. At the line, 80% foul shooting for Clark-Willow Lake. Webster at 55%, 5 out of 9. Webster winning the rebounding battle, the Bearcats 17-14 with that advantage after one half. Taking a look at the Webster lineup, 9 points for Lindsey Vogel, 1 of 2 three-pointers, 3 of 4 from the field, 2 of 2 at the line. 9 points followed by a 6-point effort from Whitney Keller and Haley Rithmiller. They worked their way down to a 3-point first half for Mariah Valesky. Jody McCreary coming up with 3 points. And Mackenzie Valesky with no points according to the DAC Stats program. Whitney Keller coming up with 6. And that is how the first half goes. 34-27, Clark-Willow Lake is leading Webster. We're going to take a break, and then we'll take a look at a piece that was put together in the 25th anniversary of Wessington Springs making the state tournament. We'll take a look at that for you after this timeout on member-supported South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Free statewide broadcast of this South Dakota High School Sports Championship is underwritten by the thousands of members of the Friends of South Dakota Public Broadcasting, by Mid-Continent Communications, and by Dakota Bank.
Clark-Willow Lake has a lead on Webster area. It had been a seesaw effort for the better part of the half, but again with Mackenzie Huber setting up inside and some great three-point shooting. The Cyclones, visitors on the scoreboard, and the number 5 seed have the 7-point lead with a couple of minutes to go before the second half gets underway here in Watertown. A great crowd on hand. Thanks for watching on SDTV TV3. And one more school in the tournament has on Wisconsin for its fight song. Little trivia if you play Trivial Pursuit tonight. The A series started early this afternoon, right at noon Central Time. St. Thomas More over Cheyenne-Eagle Butte, 64-21. Alexis Swedlin rolling to 24 points in the game, 12 of those in the first quarter, in fact. 64-21, the Cavaliers by Cheyenne-Eagle Butte. St. Thomas More plays the winner of this game going on now between Webster area and Clark-Willow Lake. In Class AA, Sioux Falls O'Gorman, number 1 seed in the state AA tournament in Brookings. That final was 76-32 over Huron. Rapid City Stevens and Aberdeen playing in game 2 in AA. Again, 64-21, St. Thomas More defeating Cheyenne-Eagle Butte. Sully Buttes and Kimball White Lake played the first game in the B tournament. Sully Buttes, the Chargers, getting the win over the Wildcats, 69-44. So the winner of that game, basically Sully Buttes, taking on Jones County or Smet in the first semifinal game tomorrow night. We are just about back into business. Cyclones leading the Bearcats 34-27, our score. How do you see things being any different or perhaps similar in half number 2, John?
Well, for Clark-Willow Lake, just keep doing what you're doing. Work the inside. Huber is in the heads of the Webster area post players right now with 4 block shots in the first half. She's got them thinking about where she's at, but rather than trying to make the shot right now at this point. Keep going back in there, keep feeding Huber. And for Webster area, it's a matter of now they're into the second half. Can they play aggressive? With Miller in foul trouble with 2 fouls. Joby McCreary now with 2 fouls.
Right.
And they had to set for a big portion, so their post players were really kind of handcuffed in that first half. Can they get back to playing a little more normal?
And you have to play pretty tentatively the rest of the way with 2 fouls and knowing Mackenzie Huber's waiting for more.
There's Rith Miller. Little left-hand floater. Rolls in good. Rith Miller leads this team in scoring at 20 points in contest. There's Prouty for Clark-Willow Lake. Prouty, Hartley. Now Colden has it between the circles. Looks back over at Hartley. Back to Prouty. Lob it over the top, set it up inside for Huber. Actually, I think the pass was going to Young. Huber was there on the weak side, and Huber is going to pick it up and get fouled. I think the pass was going to Young, was just over her head.
Yeah, and Huber was right there with the save. I don't know if she thought maybe the pass was coming to her or she thought the pass was going to be errant and she'd better save it. Not sure which way on that, but she'll go to the free throw line.
I'm going with the pass being errant, and she was able to spot it just like she did on the missed shot on the other end of the first half, where she was just tracking it. She knows what's going on, tracked it, realized it was over the head of Young and went and got it, and now hits the first free throw. Can't hit the second free throw. Rithmiller again with a rebound. Lindsey Vogel. Vogel got going there in that second quarter. She's up to 9 now in the game. Vogel down the lane. Instead of challenging Huber, lays it inside. Now Huber very smartly backs off. McCreary was waiting for her and waiting for her to come over and block the shot, missed the layup.
Lindsey Vogel had a wide open path down the driveway, put up the shot, and couldn't get it done. They had 2 other opportunities. And that's how you tell it's Clark-Willow Lake's day. A shot like that Huber just hit and died on the rim and dropped down.
Huber picking up the rebound. Huber now with up to 8 boards in the contest. Rithmiller, little 10-foot floater on the baseline's no good. And Webster area down by 8 now. Dangerous part of the ball game here, and now Keller's going to pick up the foul, just kind of bumping into Prouty out 30 feet from the basket.
John had said one of the toughest calls to make for a basketball official is whether it's a block or a charge. That one not tough at all, as the defender obviously had the feet moving.
No, when you're, there can be a little doubt if you're in kind of the scrum underneath the basket. That far out, just the two of you, no doubt at all. Prouty, 3 in and out, no good. Rithmiller rips it away.
And Rithmiller showing some signs of life here in the second half. Just kind of shaking off the 2 fouls, trying to play her game as best she can.
Vogel off to Valesky. Mackenzie Valesky. Twin sister Mariah will check in. Here's McCreary. Steps through, can't hit it, and it's out of bounds off Webster. So Webster area, after that long drought, hadn't been to the state tournament since 1981 until last year. Took 7th place last year, back 2nd year in a row now. And for Clark-Willow Lake, pretty good tradition there with several outstanding players over the years. I'm thinking of Seafelt and Schlegel as 2.
China Stevens.
And I knew you would come up with China.
How can I, of all people, forget China Stevens?
Foul on Young will get her 4th. And Angela Young will pick up her 4th personal. Battling for the rebound.
Angela Young with her 4th foul.
And she will have to take a seat. But for Clark-Willow Lake, Gary, that didn't work out so bad in the first half when they brought in Janae Colden.
Right. And the Cyclones doing a pretty nice job of fending off Webster here.
Pass over the head of Rithmiller, right into the hands of Michaela Prouty. Baseline, Rithmiller will knock it out of, well, she'll knock it away from Hartley, but can't save it. Sioux Falls O'Gorman at the AA, routed Huron. Winning big there. Sully Buttes beating Kimball White Lake. Here, St. Thomas More struggled in the first quarter. They only scored 17 points, but was able to get the win over Cheyenne-Eagle Butte rather handily. Is that right? Got 5:50 to play in the first quarter. No score between the Smet and Jones County. Or do you have?
I've been looking at that, and I've been trying to figure out whether or not that is. I mean, I've had trouble with the statistics program for the better part of the day here, and so I'm just not taking any chances. I haven't said anything about it, but right now that's how it looks. Foul on Huber.
Webster fans roaring their approval. Mackenzie Huber. Well, first of all, Valesky did an excellent job of hustling after the basketball and saving it from going out of bounds. Threw it into Rithmiller. Then Rithmiller did an outstanding job of recognizing that Joey McCreary was on the inside and had position on Huber, and that forced the foul on Huber. That's her 2nd. Here's a 3, Valesky, no good. Huber with the rebound. Keller goes flying by, takes a swipe at it. Not going to dislodge it from Huber's hands. Huber will get it out here to Prouty, and the Cyclones will set up the offense. 37-29. Throw it away, throw it right to Rithmiller.
And Rithmiller, just perfect timing, got her hand out just in time to get the basketball.
Rithmiller down the lane, can't hit the shot. And there's Golden to pick it up. Inside, they go to Janae. Jump pass back to Prouty. Pull up 15-footer, blocked. And we got a foul, take your choice. couple of Webster players in there. Battling Mackenzie Huber for the rebound, and it's going to be out of bounds to... nope, they'll call the foul. All right, they'll call the foul. So when we come back, Clark-Willow Lake will have the basketball, and we'll step aside. 37-29, Cyclones lead the Bearcats, and the girls stay there in Watertown. Back with more after this. Thank you. Clark-Willow Lake with the basketball after the foul. I thought it was me there, Gary.
We all thought so too, Jeff.
Inside Huber, off the glass, good.
And did you see the scrum underneath that Huber was having along with McCreary? McCreary went back about 3 or 4 steps. Huber stood her ground, got the shot up and in.
Rithmiller with the rebound, put back good by Haley Rithmiller.
And offensive rebounding has been kind of tough for Webster area here in the half. And a travel.
Webster jumps into a little full-court press, and that forced Michaela Prouty, wasn't expecting it, turned around with the basketball, and there was a defender right in her face, forced her to take the extra steps. So the Bearcats, after that big lead at that little spurt there at the end of the first quarter, they had an 8-0 run. Clark-Willow Lake has been in control since then. Rithmiller spins, shot no good, rebound is taken by Huber. That was the 4th or 3rd foul on Rithmiller. Gonna be play a little careful here the rest of the quarter. Otherwise, Coach Vergelt for Webster area will have to have her sit for the rest of the quarter. Colden missed 3. Rithmiller with a rebound.
What a pretty rebound too. She skied for that, knew Huber had to be in the area, but shook it off and got it in.
Rithmiller goes right at Huber, challenges her, and Huber will pick up her 3rd foul.
And now things really get interesting inside. If you're Mark Prouty, whose hair is plenty gray as it is, probably getting a little bit grayer as we speak, because, you know, do you have someone with Huber's prowess who can take him over and just kind of fill in the gap until late in the game when he can bring Huber back in?
Well, Young's already on the bench with 4 fouls. In danger of having to play without Mackenzie Huber. And you can tell it's a decision, Gary, that he doesn't want to make. Coach Prouty doing some pacing here. Second free throw good by Rithmiller. And Rithmiller, when she gets the rebound, her one goal is to drive down court and score. And if you don't stop the dribble, she'll take it right to town on you. And Clark-Willow Lake had done a pretty decent job in the first half of keeping that under control. There's Rithmiller. That's what she does. The cross-court pass, the steal, the layup, good.
Rithmiller goes border to border, ocean to ocean. Not a thought process in any case. She just saw instinctively, mind you, saw the opportunity to get the basketball with a quick glance in concentration. And then she took the ball all by herself to get the score.
39-35, Cyclones with the lead, but Webster trying to use the momentum behind this huge crowd to come back on the Cyclones. Rithmiller now with 14 on the afternoon, 6 rebounds, 9 for Vogel. Clark-Willow Lake with Candace Colden and Mackenzie Huber with 11 points each. Huber nearing a double-double. She's at 1 rebound away.
I've got an idea for you, John. Follow SDPB Sports on your mobile device all season long, providing frequent updates to all South Dakota High School Championship events on Facebook and Twitter. Search SDPB Sports to hook up with us. Join the conversation at hashtag SDHoops15. Hashtag SDHoops15. 2:46 left. Bearcats have cut it to 4. They've found their land legs here in Watertown. 39-35, Clark-Willow Lake leading.
Full court pressure coming here from Webster area. Keller on the floor along with Mackenzie Valesi. And Rithmiller, McCreary, or Joby McCreary. Sorry, Boog, you got me all flustered.
And
now a foul is going to be called. That's going to be on Rithmiller. It is on Rithmiller. That will be her fourth.
Oh, goodness. And now Coach Vergelt with some thinking to do as he paces the bench. He will make the substitution. And Prouty will go to the free throw line.
Coach Prouty pulling Huber back across midcourt. So don't even get in there for the rebounds. You just get back down there. Michaela Prouty hits the first free throw. Prouty on the season, shooting 70% at the charity stripe, averaging 12 points a ball game. That's just her fourth point, or excuse me, her fifth point on the day.
There's number 6.
41-35, the lead goes back to 6. Full court pressure coming from Webster area, or from Clark-Willow Lake, and now a blocking foul is going to be called on Colden right in front of the Webster area bench.
Not much contact made, but enough where you got the personal foul happening there. As Colden just got a little piece of the body of Valesky.
Keller looking at everything over. They'll give it inside to Schoenbeck, trying to go after Huber. Schoenbeck missed the shot, knocked out of bounds by Clark-Willow Lake.
And it will come.
I think he's gonna change it.
Yep, he did.
He pointed at Clark, then pointed the other direction. I think that's gonna be it. I think he pointed in the wrong direction.
And now the officials in conference right now, and it will stay in possession of Webster area. You saw Mark Prouty giving the signal like somebody got just a little piece of the ball, but to no avail. Bearcats keep it.
In the corner, Valesky three, way short. And everybody from Clark-Willow Lake just screens off the Webster Bearcat players and let it go out of bounds.
Walensky hit it right there. She's capable of making the shot, but it's more of a line drive shot than anything, and it hit the rim and came straight down.
Well, we'll get Joby out of the game for Webster area, and they'll bring Roush back in here. So Coach Vergelt having to go to the bench with Schoenbeck and Roush playing some major minutes here. Now Vogel nearly come up with a foul. Then after the steal, didn't get it. Colden to Prouty, minute 54 in the corner. Janae Colden driving. Steps around the defender and off the glass.
And falling backward as she did it.
Challenging Mackenzie Hubert. Hubert will stand her ground and Valesky can't hit it.
Does it seem to you like the Bearcats might be in a little too big of a hurry right now, John?
For a possession or two, yeah. Could very well be, but I'm not going to fault. That's what they've done all year. They're playing at that speed. Here's Hubert, runs into Schoenbeck. Ball bounces right back to her, but she can't hit the shot. And Roush will pull the rebound down.
That's one of the closest shots you'd ever want to see. Couldn't get it done, and then for a second, nobody for Clark-Willow Lake knew where the basketball was.
Vogel, three is good. Down to 5.
Closest has been 4 in this half at 39-35.
Under a minute to play here in the quarter. Clark-Willow Lake walking it down with Prouty. Inside Huber. Little slide step to get in rhythm and lay up good by Huber.
Nothing to it, and really nobody there who could stop her as Huber took the ball, knew exactly what she was doing, and there's a foul on the block.
Hartley commits the personal. The winner of this one will get St. Thomas More at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Cheyenne-Eagle Butte awaits the other team at noon tomorrow. Webster area looks like they might want to hold for one here. Coach probably telling his team just back up, or actually he's telling Cole or telling Hartley back up. Took them a little time to get used to Coach Prouty, get used to the system. Once they did, they took off. Long three, no good by Keller. And Prouty traveled, but that comes at the end of the quarter. Well, we're through 3, 45-38, Webster area trailing Clark-Willow Lake at the Girls State A basketball tournament in Watertown. We're back with the fourth quarter. in 60 seconds. Fourth quarter set to start here in Watertown. Clark-Willow Lake and Webster area. The two teams that battled in the month of February, on February 19th. It was a huge win for Clark-Willow Lake. Snapped an 11-game winning streak for the Webster area. They work inside. Clark-Willow Lake, there's Prouty. Prouty going to work in the paint. With all the foul difficulties, Gary, I was waiting for one of those teams to start attacking the inside.
Absolutely, and Prouty had people on her, but they gave her a fairly wide berth to go underneath. She split the difference, put up the shot, hit it.
And that's going to be out. It'll stay with Webster area. All right. A couple of Bearcat jerseys around there. This is a number 4, number 5 seed, and traditionally, as Gary said in the pregame, traditionally very competitive game when you get the 4 and the 5 seeds. Two very comparable teams usually. Valesky 3, rims off no. Rithmiller tipped it, and with 4 fouls, stayed away from Huber. Otherwise, should have picked up the 5th right there.
Indeed. Huber basically had her own way on the baseline as the rebound came out, high rebound came out to her. She corralled it, and here are the Cyclones with the ball.
This Clark-Willow Lake team beat the number 2 seed, the Hamlin Chargers, and the number 1 seed, Sioux Valley Cossacks, in the region tournament. 3, no. Huber, rebound, that's her 4th.
She'll get it over and back as she goes on top of Rethmiller. Fighting for the rebound, went for the ball, got the body instead, and we come the other way as that is the 7th team foul on Clark-Willow Lake. You'll put Rethmiller at the line.
It's going to be Rithmiller's going to be...
Mackenzie Huber with her 4th foul, 7th team foul on the Cyclone. Toby McCrary in the line for the Bearcats.
McCreary at the line for the Wildcats, and we'll get a timeout taken by Coach Vergel first. So Joby McCreary's at the free throw line. 4th foul on Huber. Rithmiller with 4. What do you see from this point on?
What I see from this point on is basically, and it might be a little bit early for this, but you just kind of have to ignore the fact that there are some people in pretty deep foul trouble. And I'm thinking primarily of Huber, although Huber has been quite a cog in the wheel this afternoon and this season for Clark-Willow Lake, but she has to do what she knows she can do. Again, keep in mind a couple of the inside players for Webster area, both with 3 fouls as well. So, kind of in reverse, it's one to give, but by the same token, you don't want to push your luck.
Lead is 9 for Clark-Willow Lake. Almost a minute into the quarter here in the 4th. And Joby McCreary will hit a free throw. Hit the front end, she'll get the bonus. That is the 7th team foul on Clark-Willow Lake. 4 team fouls on Webster area.
And my error telling you that Rithmiller got the rebound and should go to the line. That was 44 instead of 34.
And Young is back in there. Angela Young with 4 fouls. Rithmiller on the floor with 4 for Webster area. And Huber has 4 for Clark-Willow Lake. Huber's out of the game right now. Coach Prouty going a little smaller lineup. He's trying to get as many minutes as he can out of Young before he has to bring Huber back. They'll back it out, take some time off the clock, leading by 8. Inside Young, that is a foul, or is it going to be a travel? A travel.
Wow. Rithmiller turned and looked at the officials, and her eyes were about as big as satellite dishes, thinking, wait a minute, is that on me? And the sigh of relief really cooling off the building when she realized that it was a travel.
Well, Coach Vergelt can start breathing again as well. He thought it was on Rithmiller. A little spinning turnaround shot by Rithmiller is no good. Valesky to the floor with Prouty. It's going to be a jump ball called. Possession arrow belongs to Webster area.
And that was quite a battle. I don't think she ever had control of the pass. And credit Valesky getting in there and saying, let's give it a shot. Ball was on the floor, so was the Cyclone player. Walensky got right down there.
Keller all alone in the corner. Vogel, 3, no. Valesky off her. Valesky and Golden battling for it, and it's going to be off Valesky. Mackenzie Valesky touched it last. Clark-Willow Lake basketball. Webster area beginning to scramble just a bit. They're down 8.
And right now, with 8 points, you really don't need to tempt fate with Mackenzie Huber. You can take yourself, give yourself a few more minutes, take good care of the basketball, just hold Webster area, if nothing else, at arm's length, and save Huber for the big showdown.
Prouty very close to picking up the offensive foul there. Kind of pushing off. And now inside, McCreary with the steal. Off to Rithmiller. Rithmiller down the lane. Can't hit it, but she is fouled.
So Rithmiller goes to the free throw line. That's the 8th foul on Clark-Willow Lake. This is a note that could prove fascinating in the last few minutes. There are 3 fouls to give for Webster.
And from the players on the floor, I think the only ones that can foul is Valesky and Keller. Everybody else has got 3 or 4.
Now Huber comes back into the game with 5:41 left.
Huber is back in. Young stayed out there as well. And it was Hartley that left, given the Hartley a little bit of a breather here. Free throw is good. Rithmiller pulls her team to within 7 here. Prouty backcourt being double teamed. Looking to set up the half-court trap. There it is, and a steal by Rithmiller. Rithmiller goes up. Shot good by Rithmiller.
Cross-court passes are dangerous an awful lot of the time. Rithmiller smelled that right away. She said, okay, it's mine, see ya. And she's able to get it done, and Rithmiller now with 18 points.
Closest that Webster area has been for a while.
Yes.
5 points they trail Clark-Willow Lake here.
And I think Mark Prouty brought his center, Michaela Huber, in at a good time. He could see the momentum beginning to shift, and I guess we all could, and he thought, well, this might be the time we have to take our chances. And I mean, with Huber in there, you've got that inside presence you don't really have with anyone else. She just has to shake off the foul count, stay in as long as she can, and if that's the final 5:26, great.
Well, and for a lot of the younger players, Gary, a lot of the players you see picking up the fouls, what happens is usually they come on rebounds where you're trying to go get the rebound too aggressively, maybe missed a shot, you're trying to get the rebound, and that's, you just don't stop and think you're going after the ball. I mean, that's the mentality, and that's where you got to control it, back off. And Mackenzie Huber's a smart enough basketball player. She realizes that, so you can bet that she'll play smart for the last 5:26. If you're on the other hand, if you're Webster area, anybody that Mackenzie Huber is guarding, go after them. And the same thing for Clark-Willow Lake. If Rithmiller's on you, go after him. And now from behind, Keller sneaks in, knocks the ball away from Prouty, right into Coach Mark Prouty's hands.
That was a beautiful effort that time, as Keller got up behind Prouty and was able to swat the ball away, just ran out of room to have the play work completely.
2-3 zone for Webster. Prouty goes behind the young screen in the corner. Colden, she's been quiet, no longer.
Colden was right there as she...
Candace Colden.
Yeah, she was there wide open left side. Just need 1 or 2 shots to find your rhythm again, and that may be the breaker for Colden.
Inside, they go to McCreary. She'll throw it out to Keller. Valesky 3 from out front, no good. Rebound is kicked around, and Webster area has it. We're going to get a jump ball called, and possession belongs to Clark-Willow Lake. Joey McCreary getting up off the floor.
And McCreary had a piece of the ball for a while, but trying to get a dribble back so she isn't called for a travel, which would have been disastrous because you're on Clark-Willow Lake's end.
Well, the lead is back to 8, and your Webster area only 4 team fouls here in this quarter. And Rithmiller very, very close to picking up her 5th one right there.
And Mark Prouty getting a warning from the official and getting a timeout.
I think that's what he wanted, was the timeout.
Okay.
4:42 to play.
So another timeout called, an 8-point lead for the Clark-Willow Lake Cyclones against the Webster area Bearcats. Taking a look at the B tournament, we have been stuck on 5:50 in the first period for a long time. So either both teams have left the court and gone back to their respective communities, or we're having some problems with the statistics in Hero.
Either or. I'm leaning more toward the problems of both teams leaving.
And I would do that too. 3:42 in the fourth period. Aberdeen Central up by 8 over Rapid City Stevens. That's 43-35.
4:40 to play here in this one. 50-42 Clark-Willow Lake. Huber's on the floor for the Cyclones with 4 fouls. Young is in there with 4. Here's Young down the lane. Can't hit it. She is going to be fouled. And we'll go to the line for free throws. The question is for Webster area, who was it?
It could be Vogel.
Nope, Joey McCreary.
Okay, I was going to say the other one could be McCreary, and McCreary ended up getting it.
McCreary with the foul. That is her 4th. Free throw by Young, no good, misses the front end. It's the girls' state A from Watertown Civic Arena. John Sieber, Gary Ellenbolt. Next week we're in Rapid City. Second free throw good by Young. Hard to believe, Gary, we're in a state basketball tournament and there is no snow in the forecast.
That's incredible. Remember some of those tournaments we've been to? We look out the door and there's a howling blizzard out.
Free throw, or the little free throw line jumper, no good by Vogel. Valesky kept it alive for the Bearcats. Looking inside, McCreary. Here's Rithmiller. Defense backs up 1 of the 3. Hartley, or that's Janae Colin, 33, didn't back up at all. Rithmiller, air ball out of the right corner. And now Webster's at that point where they may start forcing things just a little bit here, Gary.
Indeed. And they actually have 3 fouls to commit before something happens. There's a shot, good.
Inside, they set play, running the baseline against that zone. Angela Young got the pass from Prouty.
Valesky hits the floor hard, and she's going to get up. She's going to be fine, and we have got a timeout. You watch this for a minute, come back for the final 3:35 of a really entertaining game on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. You see some of the crowd here at the Watertown Civic Arena, as would befit a couple of schools within 50 miles of the venue city of Watertown. Good crowd on hand, and they are feeling it, and a lot to feel. Cyclones up 11 with 3:35 to go. It's 53-42.
I don't know about that fan. We're in the Webster section. Oh no, that was the Clark-Willow Lake section.
Okay.
53-42, as Gary said, Cyclones lead. These two teams, as we've talked about throughout the broadcast, they played on February 19th with Clark-Willow Lake winning 49-31. Clark-Willow Lake playing very, very well down the stretch here in the season. You talk to Coach Prouty and he'll tell you, hey, took some time for the kids to adjust to me and me to adjust to the kids with the new system.
Mm-hmm. And Wade Stobbs was there for years.
Excellent job by Stobbs. Took them to the last state tournament, and once the kids and Coach Prouty started things started clicking, they've been winning. Vogel inside will get the basket for Webster area, and it's just been a matter of kind of finding the rhythm for Clark-Willow Lake. And anytime you go into the regions, you can beat the number 2 seed and the number 1 seed to advance to the state tournament. You're playing really well.
That's right, and maybe it's an indication your life's a little charmed.
Shot no good. Back comes Valesky, goes under the defender. That's Prouty, and Valesky takes a tumble.
And they're playing 5-on-4 right now. I don't think they notice he's down.
That's the way it will be until Webster area gets the ball, or it's been a stoppage in play. And Vogel, they're going to call an intentional foul on Vogel.
They may very well, because the Cyclone player hit the deck hard. Vogel went down with her. Well, they're not going to call it an intentional, just a foul on the hold. It's going to go on Lindsey Vogel, her second. If it was intentional, Cyclones would have the ball.
And the free throws, but nope.
Right.
I must have been looking at the wrong thing. Valesky's up. She's staying in the ball game. Took a hard spill on the other end. Here's Vogel inside. Missed it. It looks like Webster area right now, Gary, instead of going at the basket these last 2 possessions to score, they've been going in looking for the foul.
And that's really nothing they can afford to do right now. They've got 2 minutes and 21 seconds to get back into this one. They trail by 9 points, which is a 3-possession game, certainly, and easy to make up, especially with the 3-point shot, but you got to do what's working for you.
Well, and Joey McCreary is gone. Senior is fouled out in the state tournament here in Watertown. 5'9" senior. They'll bring in Lindsay Schoenbeck to replace McCreary. Vogel after the miss. Front end. Here's Vogel just weaving her way through traffic. How did she get through there?
Oh, man. I mean, there were people in the defensive position for Clark-Willow Lake, and they just basically had Vogel work right around them.
And now Janae Colden back in. Rolls it in good. First points in a while here for Clark-Willow Lake.
And Janae Colden showing a hot hand here in the 4th quarter. She had a deep shot earlier.
Vogel, 3 is good. 5:49, minute 44 to go.
How many overtimes are good for?
Ball from behind's knocked away by Valesky. Valesky and Keller did an excellent job of trailing the Clark-Willow Lake players and sneaking in from behind and knock the ball away. That's where you got to depend on your teammates to yell, look out, or at least get out of the way or something.
Right.
Prouty. Back to Colden, sets the feet, misses the 3.
And nothing to it on the rebound for Whitney Keller as it came right out to her. Just hit the side of the rim and kind of hit a line drive on the rebound back out to her.
Cyclone players and fans were yelling, stop the 3. And they're inside. Schoenbeck calling for it. Mackenzie Huber's on her. She's got 4 fouls. Schoenbeck realized that, backed her down and laid it in. It's down to 4 with 1:07 to go.
Great piece of strategy that time by Schoenbeck.
Bearcat fans getting active now. Prouty. Off to Colden. 15 on the shot clock, and there's the foul out front. It's down to 4. That will put Prouty at the free throw line. Prouty's hitting 70% of her free throws on the season.
And there is enough time, really, for anything to happen here. 53.5 seconds left. Prouty can put a little distance between with a couple of successful tosses.
Prouty had been 4 of 4 at the charity stripe, Gary, on the afternoon until that trip right there. Keller wanted the 3, picks up her dribble. 44 seconds to play. Vogel will drive in, go cross court. Schoenbeck knocked out of bounds by Colden. Wow, nice pass by Vogel going across the lane with that little skip bounce pass.
And all Colden could do to get a piece of that, interrupt the flow. Webster area takes it 23 to shoot, 40 to play.
Here's Vogel all the way through, trying to challenge Huber. 3, good by Valesky.
Big
timeout.
Pointer by Valesky. She set it up left side, wide open for the shot, and drained it.
It's down to 1 with 33 seconds to go.
33.6 ticks in a fascinating, very entertaining basketball game here. South Dakota Public Broadcasting is able to provide coverage of the state high school basketball championships and other quality shows you enjoy. Because of the generous support of viewers like you, please take a moment to express your appreciation by logging on to sdpb.org and clicking on Donate Now to make an investment in programs that matter. Thank you.
We were talking about the outfits that the Webster student section had at last year's state tournament. Clark-Willow Lake, the Cyclone student section, doing pretty good of their own. I like the green hat. Not so much for the Daisy Dukes, but the green hat works.
Yeah. Well, you know, Daisy Dukes is from South Dakota. For Daisy Duke, Catherine Bach grew up in Faith. You didn't know that, did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Because normally I see the eyebrows go up when you're about to say, well, yeah, I know that. Just don't talk the rest of the weekend, Jerry.
Catherine Bach, yes, sir. West River, South Dakota. Did you know I'm not from South Dakota originally?
I'm not either.
55, 54.
I'm from the greatest state in the land of the free.
Tennessee, no doubt.
No.
Cyclone basketball. They'll be able to run the baseline, and Prouty will throw it in, or actually Young will just hand off to Prouty. That was a design play to try to break the pressure.
Right.
And very nearly cost them. The 5-second count was on, and right away they were trying to look and see who Coach Prouty on this end took the timeout. Coach Vergelt and Sawinski, the assistant coach, they thought that it might have been a little past the 5-second, but the call was made from this end of the floor.
And there you see the situation, both teams with a single timeout left in regulation. 55-54 as Webster area has definitely made this their period in the fourth quarter. And you see both teams at least in the single bonus.
I thought you were kidding when you were talking about overtime after the 5 overtime game we did last year at the boys State B. What a game. We barely got the people cleared out for the afternoon session to come in for the evening session.
I don't think Paul Ross has recovered yet, has he?
I think Ross is doing just fine. His Langford squad back in the State B tournament next week up in Aberdeen.
And a lot of people saying a lot of good things about the Lions. Like they may have a shot this year.
They got a very good squad with Mr. Freeze on there. The Larson kid's pretty solid as well. Got some good ball players on that Langford squad. And now I think Coach Vergelt wanted an explanation as to what was going on there.
He seems fine with it because he's calmly, at least from our view, walking back to the front of the Bearcat bench.
They'll get it into Prouty backcourt. Prouty triple team, barely gets it out to Young. Young, wow! And Young nearly traveled in the front court. Coach Prouty's yelling to hold it, hold it. They go inside Colden. Colden goes up, fouled by Keller. Not Rithmiller, it's on Keller. And Coach Vergelt's asking Rithmiller who's guarding her.
And Colden a little bit shaken. It looked like maybe she was trying to alleviate a stiff neck or something, but she is fine, and she will go to the free throw stripe. She'll get to 1-1.
The answer, Coach, was no one was guarding her.
I'm sure that was one of those rhetorical questions coaches ask a lot.
Free throw, no good by Colden.
And again, she was shooting. I said it was a 1-1, but this actually a two-shot foul as Colden was shooting at the time of the violation.
Second one is good. Lead is 2 with 21 ticks on the clock. Full court pressure coming from Clark-Willow Lake. Rithmiller all the way down. Rithmiller will pull up for the shot, but wouldn't have counted anyway because Coach Vergelt had his timeout, his last timeout. He wanted to draw it up.
With 18.1 seconds left, Clark-Willow Lake has a 2-point lead on Webster area. So if you are Coach Vergelt and you hand the basketball, you've got 18 seconds left to work with it, and it's down to maybe the last 2 seconds of the game. Do you go for the home run ball and get the win, or you just take the safe shot and force the extra period?
I think you take whatever the defense gives you. If it's a good look at the three, you've got excellent three-point shooters, take it.
Yeah. So who takes the shot?
I think there's three choices out there: either Rithmiller, Valesky, or Vogel.
Yeah.
But then Keller's hit a couple of big threes here in the game, so I think you got 4 options. I think option number 1, you look at keeping the ball in Vogel's hands and having her just create something off the dribble if you have enough time. And if it's there, take it. These are big games, especially for officials. We want to send our condolences along the way to the family of Buzzy Hortness. He was a legend up here in Northeast South Dakota, officiating legend with him and Al Syme. They live for games like this. They love these type of games, this atmosphere. And Buzzy passed away in January. A long-time fixture at state tournaments officiating. Some great stories with those two to get them together. We certainly want to send our condolences along to Buzzy's family. Know he's got some family still living around that Webster area. Mackenzie Huber steps in, knocks it away, and a foul is called. Wow. Wow.
Could very well be a deal breaker as Huber able to come up with the basketball. She saw enough opening as the pass was coming in her direction, got the handout, got the basketball, and the foul is going to go on Keller, her fourth for Webster area.
Still time here. Foul was on Keller. Colden at the line, missed the first one. Colden hitting about 60% on the season at the charity stripe. Second one is good. The lead is 3.
Well, now three-pointers are your only option, obviously.
Now do you foul? Schoenbeck looking back for Vogel. Throws it off her face. Vogel from deep in the corner. Bottom! Oh my gosh! We're going to overtime! Are you kidding me? Lindsay Vogel had the pass bounce off her head.
And then got deep in the corner,
falling out of bounds in that right corner. Turned and just threw it up, and it goes in. Wow. Well, OT it be.
I try to avoid cliches like the plague, and you know that, John. But you just have to think of the fact that big-time players make the big-time plays. And the future Lady T for Dakota State University came up, pulled up the shot, the three-pointer somehow good, and she didn't even hit the rim.
There's no rim at all. Nothing but the bottom. And Coach Vergelt, you could see him when they got the ball down court. There was Schoenbeck had the basketball. Clark-Willow Lake just like a swarm of mosquitoes just away from Schoenbeck. If you want the 3, you take it. And Vergelt's yelling, get it to Lindsay behind you. And so she did. When she turned, she fired the pass and hit Vogel in the head. That's why she wound up in the corner.
And she was probably seeing 5 or 6 rims by the time she got that shot off.
You know, we're screened off by the fans from seeing into that corner. I'll have to go back tonight and try to get a replay on that somewhere, and try to watch the game online or something. But everybody on the Clark-Willow Lake side was standing up. Lindsay Vogel, number 20, with the shot to force the overtime period. Foul difficulties. The Webster area has already lost Joey McCreary. McCreary is gone. And Rithmiller has 4. Keller has 4. And Vogel 4. Oh, no, Vogel has 3 for Webster area. And for Clark-Willow Lake, Young has 4 and Huber has 4. Boy, some big shots down the stretch for that Webster area squad, Gary.
And they shared the wealth an awful lot. Valesky had some big threes, of course, Vogel.
There's Rithmiller on the drive, can't hit it. 4-minute overtime period. Tied at 57. Of Lindsay Vogel, fall away, no-look 3 to tie it up at the end of regulation.
Remind me to never play horse with Lindsay Vogel.
Prouty to Huber. Mackenzie Huber has the ball knocked away from behind by Valesky. Here comes Rithmiller. Nobody stops the dribble. Rithmiller pulls up, and that's not her game. That's where you can see that 4th foul bothering her. Rithmiller would never pull up for that during the course of the regular season, always going right to the basket. But Clark-Willow Lake in the first half, Gary, did an excellent job of sitting up on that block and taking that away from her. And if you notice, Prouty ran right to the block and stayed there. Clark-Willow Lake with the basketball. I like the strategy between the two coaches.
Oh, indeed.
Huber on the drive, can't hit it.
Each coach knows what every other player on the opponent's team is capable of doing. And I'm sure they've been up most of the last 2 weeks trying to figure that out.
The winner of this one gets St. Thomas more. Schoenbeck calling for it. Inside, blocked by Huber. Vergelt wanted the foul, didn't get it. Schoenbeck, I think, wanted the foul call on that one as well. But a nice job by Schoenbeck coming off the bench and challenging Mackenzie Huber. She made one in the 4th quarter. Here's Hartley inside Huber. Spins, fires back outside to Colden. Janae to Prouty. Back to Young. Hartley with 6 on the shot clock. Janae Colden goes around the defense, missed it, didn't hit anything. And with 1 second on the shot clock, Mackenzie Huber will rebound and put it in.
She may not have been aware of the shot clock. She was down at the block waiting for the ball. She just went up and put it in. Chipped ball where they may.
Vogel 3 is good. Oh, mercy. Lindsay Vogel swished it from out front, right in front of the Webster area bench. Inside Huber, ball knocked away, stolen by Rithmiller. Haley Rithmiller spins, pulls up, little floater, air ball. And I think Coach Vergelt is kind of telling her, hey, look, either you go to the basket or kick it out and reset. Right now, she's out of sync on that drive.
And if you get the foul, you get the foul. You know, just take a chance, go against that. And if you're Mark Prouty, obviously you're going to have somebody down in that block perfectly still saying, all right, come and get me.
Get over here. Yep. Prouty with under a minute to go. Her team trailing by 1.
Very tight, tenacious zone defense now for Webster area.
Huber inside. Young foul by Vogel. Basket is no good. Foul on the floor, much to the dismay of the 350 or 500 Clark-Willow Lake fans we're sitting surrounded by.
Lindsay Vogel with her 3rd foul.
That we are.
Talking about being a part of the action, Mr. Ellenbolt.
And they're nice people, blessedly.
Yeah, thankfully no one's smacked us on the back yet. That's
First free throw missed.
Which brings to mind the Andy Griffith story. What it was football.
Okay.
He smacked me on the back, said, have a drink, friend. And I said, I think I'll have another. Don't know why that reference popped in my head, but it did.
Well,
Young free throw good. We're all even at 60 again.
If you figure it out why, let me know.
He was talking about knee highs, of course. Orange drinks is what he wanted. The soda. Keller over the top, inside Rithmiller, spins on Huber. Foul by Huber. The basket will count.
What a turn of events that is, as Rithmiller taking the shot from down low in the post. She puts it up, fouled in the process. Foul is going on Huber, and she's done.
Mackenzie Huber, the senior, outstanding basketball player. Had a chance to watch her play some summer league basketball here in the Watertown area, and very fitting, a nice hand from the Clark-Willow Lake fans.
Indeed. She has just had the game of her life. And it still may not be enough. That's going to depend partly on Rithmiller.
We talked about the strategy of the coaches. That time Vergelt switched Rithmiller over on the side Huber was on instead of Schoenbeck. Rithmiller hits the free throw. The lead is 3. Hartley for 3. Yes! Oh my gosh! Hartley drops it down, and we're all even at 63. Rithmiller has it swatted by Young, but we have a foul called out front or a timeout. It's a timeout.
All right.
I can't hear a thing.
And Taylor Hartley took that basketball right on the top of the head. She had no idea it was coming, looking the other way. And all of a sudden it sounded like the Big Ben chimes ringing here. 18.8 seconds. We are tied at 63. Could it be another overtime period here in Watertown? Second game of the Class A tournament. You may purchase a DVD copy of the South Dakota High School Girls Basketball Championships. All you do is call 800-456-0766, offering a 3-DVD set that features each of the games your team plays. DVD sets are $19.95, $5 for shipping and handling. If you're a member of the Friends of SDPB, like me, shipping is free. 800-456-0766 or log on to sdpb.org. Click on the shop for a copy of SDPB's coverage of the State Girls Basketball Championships. Holding up all right, man?
Yeah, they're doing fine. Just wondering how much time we're going to have between games. Probably like nothing.
Probably not.
I like it.
Maybe it's us.
This is the atmosphere. This is the type of atmosphere, Gary, that makes it worthwhile to play sports.
You know what I've been thinking several times today? Imagine this is a final.
Would be a pretty good one.
Oh, wouldn't it?
Instead, it's just the opening day, folks. We've got 2 more days of this to go. With 2.5 days. We haven't even got to the evening session yet here in the first day. 63 all, 9 seconds to play. Inside Rithmiller, shot blocked, back up, fouled by Young. And Rithmiller will step to the free throw line.
Now that was an offensive rebounding clinic. Maybe not in the greatest position to get the shot. She put it up with authority, missed, put it up again, and was fouled in the process. And so a big free throw series coming up here for Rithmiller.
So Young is done. Huber has fouled out. Hall coming because they were trying to guard sophomore Haley Rithmiller. The State A girls basketball tournament on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. We will, did Schoenbeck go out? I think Schoenbeck went out and they brought in Roush.
Okay.
Or was it Valesky? Nope, they got both Valeskys in there now.
And we will check that out in just a bit as Rithmiller will look for points 21 and 22. And a lot can happen in 7 seconds of game time. And the clock is exactly at 7.0. A 63-63 tie. Vogel the leading scorer for the Bearcats with 25. Rithmiller is 21. And Rithmiller, the rebound leader, already with the double-double, 21 and 12.
And Mackenzie Huber fouling out in this game. Huber had went up with 15 points. I think 15 points and 12 boards for Mackenzie Huber before fouling out here in the overtime period. Back and forth, nip and tuck, and just whatever you can do, I can do better. It's been an excellent final 4 minutes of the ball game and here in overtime.
Fairly deep into the second half, the Cyclones had a 9-point lead in this game.
And they were pulling away, actually led by 11 if I remember right in that fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, just very slowly, things started turning Webster's way. Next thing you know, they're just a fall away three at the buzzer from sending it to overtime. Rithmiller free throws good. Rithmiller on the season hitting 62% at the line. That'll be her 22nd point on the afternoon.
Cyclones have 1 timeout remaining in the overtime. The Bearcats done with timeouts.
Second one, Rithmiller, good. 7 seconds to get down court. They need a 2 to tie, a 3 for the win. Prouty will bring it down. Prouty all alone, baseline at the buzzer, no good. They had a great look from the baseline, just could not get it to fall. And that was Reagan Flory who was forced into playing because of Young and Huber fouling out. It was a humdinger in the game of the afternoon session. We've still got 2 games to go to finish off the day here. Webster area winning at 65-63 in overtime against Clark-Willow Lake. We'll step aside and come back with more on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Free statewide broadcast of this South Dakota High School Sports Championship is underwritten by the thousands of members of the Friends of South Dakota Public Broadcasting, by Mid-Continent Communications, and by Dakota Bank.
Well, here we're back at Watertown Civic Arena as we wrap up a very exciting afternoon session. The first game of the afternoon was not that exciting from our standpoint because of the big lead by St. Thomas More, and they go on for the easy double-digit win. And we were hoping that it didn't set the tone for the entire afternoon, Gary, which thankfully it didn't. And for Clark-Willow Lake, as they come down to the end, Clark-Willow Lake led by 11 in the fourth quarter in that second half before Webster area all of a sudden just seemed to start doing some things right. Some things started clicking. Next thing you know, they're only down they're down 2. Then the Clark-Willow Lake hits 1 out of 2 free throws. They're down 3. Lindsey Vogel at the buzzer, going deep into the right or the far side corner, just turned, fired up as the clock ran out. The red lights on the back of the scoreboard went off. Ball switched through, sent it to overtime, and Webster area able to hang on in overtime, 65-63. Outstanding basketball game. Great effort on both sides. by not only team-wise, but individual players. Mackenzie Huber fouling out in the fourth quarter. Angela Young fouling out in the fourth quarter for Clark-Willow Lake. And that forcing the youngster Reagan Flory to play, and the Webster area really just stayed away and left her open, giving in the corner. I think I don't think they left her open on purpose. I think it's one of those things where she just kind of found herself wide open. Unfortunately, was not able to hit the shot at the buzzer. And there you see your leaders. Haley Rithmiller leading the way for Webster area with 23 points, 12 boards. Lindsey Vogel, 25 points, 5 rebounds. And I had Lindsey on the afternoon. Assist-wise, what did she wind up with for assists? I thought, well, I was pretty sure that I had her down here for, there we go, 7 assists for Vogel on the afternoon to go along with the 5 rebounds and 25 points. Wrapping it up first for Clark-Willow Lake. Here's the way they were led today. Scoring-wise, Janae Colden, excellent game for Janae. 6 of 9 from the field, 17 points. 15 points for Mackenzie Huber and 12 rebounds for Huber. 12 points for Candace Colden, 4 points for Angela Young, 7 for Taylor Hartley, 8 points for Michaela Prouty. And for Clark-Willow Lake, well, it's was that it? That was it for the scoring. All right, moving on to Webster area. They were led, as we said, by Lindsey Vogel with 25 points. 23 for Haley Rithmiller. Rithmiller finished out with a double-double of her own, 23 points, 12 boards. 3 points for Joby McCreary. 2 points for Lindsay Schoenbeck. 3 points for Mackenzie Valesky. 3 points for Mariah Valesky. And 6 points for Whitney Keller. All of those coming in the first half. Team-wise, Clark-Willow Lake shot 44% from the field, 23 of 52. They were 57% at the free throw line, hit 11 of 19 free throws, 37 rebounds, and 14 turnovers to go along with 9 assists. For Webster area, they shot 38% from the field, 52% on threes, 66% at the free throw line, 12 of 18 for the Bearcats, pulled down 33 rebounds, 4 assists, 11 steals, and 11 turnovers. As the team-wise went, or team stats went, but Gary, excellent ball game.
It really was, and despite the pain of the defeat, you really have to feel, obviously, for Clark-Willow Lake, because they came in here and played hard, but they don't have a thing to be ashamed of. A couple of breaks go one way or the other. Maybe Huber doesn't foul out, but you know what? She did, and the breaks didn't go your way a couple of times, and that's just going to be the end of the matter. You look at the balance between Webster area. They got 25 points from Vogel, 23 from Rithmiller. Rithmiller, some big free throws and big shots down the stretch. And it's just, but one of those games, if you weren't here 50 years from now, you're going to say you were.
Excellent ball game here in the first round. Webster moves on to the winner's bracket where they'll take on St. Thomas More. Congratulations, you won your prize as you get to face the #1 team in the state that hasn't lost to a team in South Dakota all season, and that just absolutely destroyed their first round opponent, Cheyenne-Eagle Butte.
Yeah, that was a 64-21 final. So St. Thomas More and Webster area moved to the right side of the bracket. Webster, and maybe this is some hope, the Bearcats scored 1 more point than St. Thomas More did today.
Well, and I think tomorrow night you're going to have, we had pretty much 3/4 of the town of Webster here for this game. Yeah. I think just wipe it out, 100% of them will be here tomorrow night.
And get your tickets ASAP if you don't have them already. Other scores in the tournament. Okay, we'll get those other scores. We need to take a break. We'll do that and set the stage for tonight's games coming up as well. Webster area wins a real pair sixer tonight. Or today, excuse me. It's tonight somewhere in the world. 65-63. Bearcats win it. Back after this on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Free statewide broadcast of this South Dakota High School Championship event is brought to you in part by the thousands of members of the Friends of South Dakota Public Broadcasting, by Farmers Union Insurance, by SDN Communications, and by the Independent Insurance Agents of South Dakota.
The second game of the afternoon goes to overtime. Webster area winning at 65-63, setting us up for an exciting evening side of things here, Gary.
We've got some great basketball coming up. The number 2 seed gets things started as the Mount Vernon-Plankinton Titans will play the Warriors of Del Rapids. Of course, Mount Vernon and Plankinton merging just a couple of years ago athletically, as they wanted a nickname that they could remember, and they can remember the Titans.
Of course.
Yes, number 2, Mount Vernon-Plankinton against Del Rapids. Every once in a while, you know. And our final game, that's at 7:45 Central Time. The Huskies of Elk Point Jefferson will be in action against the Red Cloud Crusaders. 6 o'clock for our broadcast time, about 6:05 for Game 1. And Game 2 of the evening session happening in the neighborhood of 7:45. Be very hard-pressed to match the excitement or even beat the excitement, or especially beat the excitement of this one today.
It definitely will, but hopefully we can get 2 games just like that. What is it about us and the teams for the overtime stuff?
I don't know what
games.
You know. They must know you haven't eaten all day.
4 of last year's teams at the Girls State 8 basketball tournament are back this season. 2 have advanced on into the semifinals tomorrow night. St. Thomas More winning over Cheyenne-Eagle Butte earlier, and Webster area just beating Clark-Willow Lake tonight, or this afternoon, 65-63 in overtime.
Now, there is a case made for teams who play a close ball game and then turn around and have to play the next day, come out flat. That is the last thing on earth Webster area can afford to do against that machine called St. Thomas More.
It's the last thing they're thinking about right now. I'll tell you that.
We won. Where's the water? Basically,
yeah, get them out of, and I'm sure Coach Vergello will tell you that. Get them out of here. Get them off their feet. Get some food in them. Get them some rest, and get ready to come back and then start devising the game plan, the strategy. And I'm sure he's already been looking down the road for that. And if Clark-Willow Lake would have won, Coach Prouty would have had the same thing, because they've looked. You don't have a lot of time to turn around and prepare for your next opponent, so you kind of do some advanced scouting, have some things already kind of lined up.
And the Friday session, of course, will get underway with a very disappointed Clark-Willow Lake team taking on Cheyenne-Eagle Butte, and we'll see how that one goes at noon tomorrow.
All right. I was just saying I've got tomorrow.
Oh,
first Game 1.
Well, none of us are guaranteed that we've got
I wasn't telling you that I was number 1, sir. I was telling you that I'll
not this time.
I'll take that one.
We will rejoin the network at 6 o'clock tonight. Mount Vernon-Plankinton at Del Rapids, followed by Elk Point Jefferson and Red Cloud. For the entire crew here in Watertown, for the Watertown School District, the South Dakota High School Activities Association, and of course, for John Sieber, just ask him. I'm Gary Ellenbolt. We'll see you later today on member-supported South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Reagan Flory, Reagan Burke, McKenna Burke, Janae Colden, Kelly Wicks, Jennifer Tonak, and Brooke Bruns. Now the players for the Webster area Bearcats. Olivia Bresky, Mariah Valesky, Morgan Hansen, Molly Rausch, Devin Spindler, Faith Shoemaker, Lindsay Schoenbach, and Shauna Hansen. And now let's meet the starters for today's ball game. At one guard, a 5'4" eighth grader for the Cyclones, Taylor Hartley. For the Bearcats, a guard at 5'8", she's a senior, Lindsay Vogel. Forward for the Cyclones, a junior at 6'1", Angela Young. And a guard for the Bearcats, 5'8" and a senior, Whitney Keller. For the Cyclones, a guard, the senior, she's 5'8", number 5, Candace Colden. And for the Bearcats, a sophomore, the guard at 5'5", number 32, Mackenzie Valesky. A guard, a senior at 5'8", for the Cyclones, number 14, Michaela Prouty. And for the Bearcats, a forward, a sophomore at 5'10", number 34, Haley Rithmiller. And for Clark-Willow Lake, a center, a senior at 6'1", number 32, Mackenzie Huber. And the senior forward at 5'9" for the Bearcats, number 44, Joby McCrary. Clark-Willow Lake's assistant are Joel Huber and Taylor Weisler. The head coach of Clark-Willow Lake, Mark Prouty. And for the Webster area,
Spearfish with that state tournament last year.
That's right. We're having fun here after game one, the first game of the day, going the way of St. Thomas More, the number 1 seed with just 1 loss, and not to a South Dakota school, getting the better of Cheyenne-Eagle Butte. That was 64-21. St. Thomas More will play the winner of this game, and that will be either Clark-Willow Lake or Webster area. The Cyclones have made some noise in state tournaments over the years. Webster has as well, and neither team from too terribly far from here, so we should have a pretty nice crowd on again as we get into the game across from us, the Webster section, making a very nice trip, very well attended, and that's the case as well around us for the Clark-Willow Lake squad. Let us go to the second starting lineup for the second game of the state Class A girls basketball tournament, and we'll go down to our public address announcer right now.
The South Dakota High School Activity Association, along with its corporate partners, Sanford Health, First Premier Bank Card, Farmers Union Insurance Agency, Billion Automotive, and the South Dakota Army National Guard welcome you to this second game of the opening session of the State Girls High School Basketball Tournament. Our second game is between the Clark-Willow Lake Cyclones and the Webster area Bearcats. This tournament is being conducted under the guidance and regulations of the South Dakota High School Activity Association for the enjoyment and benefit of high school students. Good sportsmanship is essential for the success of these programs. We hope you enjoy the games and support your athletes in a positive and sportsmanlike manner. And now let's meet the cheerleaders, the players, coaches, and officials for today's ball game. First, the cheerleaders for Clark-Willow Lake. Hannah Grunwald, Lauren Feldland, Catherine Paulson, Cheyenne Springer, Emily Binger, and Audrey Hansen. The cheer coach is Bobby Euchre. And now let's meet the players for the visitors on the scoreboard, the Clark-Willow Lake Cyclones. Alyssa Evenson, Abby Bratland, Sydney Fallon.
Back at it from Watertown in the Civic Arena, a 64-21 decision for St. Thomas More. He's John Sieber. I'm Gary Ellenbolt, and I will admit that even though I called Kara Duffy Caitlin for a good part of the ball game today, and that was pointed out to me by a loyal viewer and an alert viewer, and I really appreciate that because I mean that's not fair to Kara or, for that matter, Caitlin. And I will work on that next time I have a Cavaliers game, and I will do better. But thank you very much. I mean, that interaction that neighborliness that we have. You know, I really appreciate knowing that I need to get better at what I'm doing. We do have a couple of final scores from the AA and A tournaments. Not necessarily runaways, but I mean, certainly not to this extent. We're 64-21. Sioux Falls O'Gorman defeating Huron, the number 1 seeded Knights, over the Huron Tigers 76-32. And Sully Butte in the B tournament in Huron, getting the 69-44 win over the Kimball White Lake Wildcats. Sully Butte advances to the second round and still in championship contention. All 3 top seeds that won their ball games today. And we've got a 4 and 5 matchup coming up. Those are typically a lot of fun, John.
Well, typically with those 2 squads, the 4 and the 5, you know, generally pretty competitive because both teams, you know, coming into these tournaments like this, that the nerves are out of the way, the first game's out of the way, you know, and now it's on to the next matchup. And for these 2 squads right here, the Clark-Willow Lake and Webster area, both played just a couple 3 weeks ago. Wasn't that long at all. And for Clark-Willow Lake, they're led by Mackenzie Huber. Huber, an outstanding post player for Clark-Willow Lake. The Cyclones, head coach there, Mark Prouty. And Huber averaging about 15 points a ball game, 11 rebounds. And Michaela Prouty, there's some backstory to that. We'll get into it as we get into the game. Interesting for this Clark-Willow Lake squad with some of the facts and figures, especially Coach Mark Prouty, who's been around for a long time.
He has. This is his first year of the head coaching work at Clark-Willow Lake. There you see some of their information. And you have said, you know, being a relative native of Northeast South Dakota, you've lived there a long time, that this has really been 2 different teams between the time that Lindsay Vogel wasn't available and the time that she got back and rejoined the team.
Well, for the Webster area Bearcats, that's exactly it. You know, and I've had a chance to watch Clark-Willow Lake a couple of times this season. Coming up on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. There, I think I finally fixed that.
Okay.
I am now a fix-it person.
I was wondering why it sounded like you were coming from the boat.
Yeah, just all of a sudden keep falling right down there. I have it fixed now.
Couple of games going on tonight. The last game of the 4-game session will be Elk Point Jefferson in action against Red Cloud, and a team that had to have an upset win by Clark-Willow Lake over Sioux Valley to get the second seed. That's Mount Vernon Plankinton. They'll take on Del Rapids a little bit later. The Warriors coming in for the first time in state in several years. They had an unbeaten record coming into the championship game in 2009. Christian Janice and Pine Ridge had just an incredible game. Dusty LeBeau had a great game plan, and they were able to get the decision over the Del Rapids Warriors here at the state tournament, the A tournament in Watertown a few years ago. So it will be MVP, as they like to call themselves, the Titans in action against the Del Rapids Warriors tonight. Then the Elk Point Jefferson Huskies taking on the Crusaders of Red Cloud just a little bit later on too.
Lots and lots of basketball over the next 3 days here in Watertown, and then we get the pleasure of hitting the road to Rapid City for even more basketball.
And that is going to be just an incredible boys tournament.
I'm sure we'll see quite a few of the same fans out there, as several of these schools, their boys teams made it to the State A.
Indeed they did. And we will take a final break. Get yourself ready to go. Clark-Willow Lake channeling the Boston Celtics in their new road uniforms. The Webster Bearcats will hit the floor pretty soon. Our final break before game time coming up right now on member-supported South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Statewide broadcast of this South Dakota High School Sports Championship is underwritten by the thousands of members of the Friends of South Dakota Public Broadcasting, by Mid-Continent Communications, and by Dakota Bank.
Back at it we go. The state girls basketball tournament in Watertown, South Dakota. You see the costumed cheering section from Webster area. They like to wear a lot of costumes, and they had some fascinating ones last year. You might remember the young man in the maid outfit. Have a picture of him pouring his orange juice.
Didn't you get a picture of him? Yes.
Oh yeah, I've got it somewhere. I think if I dig around on Facebook long enough.
That was a Facebook picture, if I remember right. With
my goodness.
waiting on you. That was quite the experience. That was a fun time out at this. Clark-Willow Lake, with their starting lineup, they're guard heavy, but that's the inside-outside that Clark-Willow Lake has, with the Huber on the inside, and then you have Prouty and Colden on the outside. It's kind of like St. Thomas More. You really got to pick your poison on what you're trying to limit with that squad. And for the Webster area Bearcats, they got off to a start with this season, lost a couple of games early, and Lindsey Vogel, Haley Rithmiller leads the team in the scoring and rebounding, but Vogel is kind of as Gary likes to say, the straw that stirs the drink for those guys. As Vogel goes, that's how the team goes. And they were having some trouble ball handling issues and stuff, and Vogel was out for the first part of the season with an ACL, and since she's been back, they've only lost one time. That was to Clark-Willow Lake on February 19th. Just kind of settled things down for Coach Jared Vergelt and the Maroon and Gold. And Webster has been playing very, very well coming into this. And as a matter of fact, with that loss to Clark-Willow Lake, they had won, I think, 12 games in a row going into that Clark-Willow Lake game. Solid ball club. And Haley Rithmiller leading the way as just a sophomore, Gary, already 770 points. And if you remember, Rithmiller missed the season last year, her freshman year, missed the season with an ACL.
Okay.
They brought her back in the state tournament last year and got her in at the end of the last game, and she was able to hit a three-pointer in that game.
Now, one of these teams, of course, John, will go into battle against St. Thomas More tomorrow. Who do you think might match up a little better? I mean, as tough as that's going to be for anybody in the state to match up with the Cavaliers, who do you think might have the better, I don't want to say game plan, but might have the personnel that could at least stay in the ballpark?
Matchup-wise, Gary, I think these two squads are very similar. They have some pretty heady point guards. They've got some ability on the inside. I think either one of these would give St. Thomas More a game, but again, it comes down to, are you ready and can you prepare for the man-to-man defense, for the defensive pressure that St. Thomas More brings? That's what takes teams totally out of their comfort zone.
And it's not just a matter of stopping one player with pressure. You've got 3 or 4 or sometimes all 5 that you have to deal with. So some people hot-dogging it here in Watertown at the state tournament. Clark-Willow Lake and Webster coming up. One of the things I remember so well from the Webster squads last year, and I understand they don't do this year, there was a group of senior boys who led the student section in God Bless America. At the end of the third quarter of every game, we were privileged enough to put that on the air, and we got a ton of response from doing so. And it's a neat moment to share with the state and Oakland Spearfish.
Webster area and Clark-Willow Lake